Pay attention to the man in the orange vest, Neil Buckner, 41 years old, owner of a small landscaping company in Harden County, Tennessee. It is Saturday, October 14th, 2023, and he is standing at the volunteer command post outside the Watauga Ridge trailhead at 7:12 a.m. He is handing out bottles of water. He is shaking hands with deputies. He is hugging a woman who cannot stop shaking. Her name is Lorraine Mauro. Her daughter Shelby has been missing for 3 days. Neil tells Lorraine not to give up. He tells her they will find Shelby. He squeezes her hand and holds it for a long time. Now pay attention to the clipboard in his other hand. He has already signed up for Grid Sector 9C, a densely wooded stretch along Millsap Creek, 4 miles east of the trailhead. Difficult terrain. Few volunteers want it. Neil requested it by name. He requested it before the sector assignments were even posted. This is the 4th missing person case in Harden County in 23 months. Neil Buckner has volunteered for every single one. He has always been the first to arrive. He has always chosen his own sector. And every time, when the victim is eventually found, they are found in or directly beside the sector Neil Buckner searched on foot and declared empty. Shelby Mauro was supposed to be home by Wednesday evening. She had promised her mother she would call when she reached the summit. She never called. Within 6 hours of this search beginning, a deputy reviewing maps in the back of a cruiser would notice a pattern that 4 investigations had missed entirely. This was not coincidence. This was maintenance. The volunteer. Neil Buckner was born in 1982 in Rogersville, Tennessee, 40 miles northeast of Harden County. His father drove trucks for a gravel company. His mother worked the front desk at a veterinary clinic. He was the middle of 3 brothers. Neighbors described him as the quiet one, but not withdrawn. He played baseball through high school. He mowed lawns on weekends and kept every dollar in a coffee can under his bed. By 23, he had turned those weekend lawns into a registered landscaping business. Buckner Property Services operated out of a single truck and trailer. He did everything himself for the first 4 years: mowing, edging, stump removal, brush clearing. He knew the terrain of Harden County better than most park rangers. He knew every trail, every service road, every drainage ditch that ran through unincorporated land. He coached a youth baseball team at the Kyles Ford Recreation Center. He attended county commission meetings. He donated equipment to trail cleanups twice a year. When the first person went missing in Harden County in January 2022, Neil showed up at the search command post with a case of water and a pair of good boots. He did not know the victim. He said he wanted to help. He said that was what neighbors did. The first victim was Marcus Leland, 29, an electrician from Churchill, who had gone hiking alone along the Clinch Mountain Connector Trail on January 7, 2022. His car was found at the trailhead 2 days later. A search was organized on January 10th. Neil volunteered for Grid Sector 4A along a remote creek drainage northwest of the trail. He searched for 6 hours. He reported finding nothing. Marcus Leland's remains were found 11 days later by a cadaver dog in a shallow depression 90 yards east of Grid Sector 4A. Cause of death was blunt force trauma. The second victim was Dana Torrance, 34, a birdwatcher from Sneedville who had camped alone near Bean Station Gap on June 19, 2022. She had told her husband she would be back by Sunday afternoon. Her tent was collapsed. Her phone was dead. Neil volunteered for Grid Sector 6B, a thicketed slope below the campsite. He searched it twice. He told the coordinator the area was clean. Dana Torrance was found 5 weeks later by a Forest Service crew clearing deadfall. She was 110 yards from the center of Sector 6B. Cause of death was ligature strangulation. The third victim was Wyatt Grimes, 26, a graduate student from Morristown who went trail running alone on the Panther Creek Loop on February 4, 2023. His truck sat at the lot for 3 days before a ranger tagged it. Neil volunteered for Grid Sector 7F. During that search, a volunteer named Tamara Boggs found a torn piece of green fabric snagged on a branch near a creek bed. She showed it to Neil. He examined it in his hands, turned it over, and told her it looked like old trash. He told her to keep moving. That fabric was later confirmed by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation to be from Wyatt Grimes' jacket. Neil had held the evidence. He dismissed it. He walked away. Shelby Mauro was found 4 days later in a ravine adjacent to Sector 7F. Cause of death was a stab wound to the chest. Now it is October 2023. Shelby Mauro, 31, a pharmacy technician from Bean Station, has gone missing on the Watauga Ridge Trail. And Neil Buckner is standing at the command post with his clipboard and his water bottles and his orange vest, ready to search. The map. Deputy Sheriff Carmen Reyes was 36 years old and had been with the Harden County Sheriff's Office for 9 years. She had worked property crimes, narcotics, and domestic calls. She had never led a missing person case, but staffing was thin, and when Shelby Mauro's mother filed the report on October 11th, she was assigned as secondary investigator under lead detective Frank Elledge, 53, a 26-year veteran. On the morning of October 14th, Carmen was sitting in the back of a cruiser at the Watauga Ridge command post. She had printed the volunteer sign-in logs and sector maps from all 4 searches. She was looking for overlap in terrain, trying to determine whether the same ground had been covered before. That is when she saw the name, Neil Buckner, Grid Sector 4A, Grid Sector 6B, Grid Sector 7F, Grid Sector 9C. 4 searches, 4 sectors. She pulled up the case files on her laptop and overlaid the recovery locations for the first 3 victims. Every body had been found within 150 yards of the sector Neil Buckner searched on foot and declared empty. Shelby Mauro was supposed to be home by Wednesday evening. She had promised her mother she would call when she reached the summit. She never called. Within 6 hours of this search beginning, a deputy reviewing maps in the back of a cruiser would notice a pattern that 4 investigations had missed entirely. This was not coincidence. This was maintenance. By noon, agents had pulled Neil Buckner's cell phone records through a judicial order filed at 11:15 a.m. The GPS data was extracted by 3:30 p.m. On the night of January 6, 2022, the night before Marcus Leland disappeared, Neil's phone pinged off a cell tower less than half a mile from the Clinch Mountain Connector trailhead at 10:47 p.m. On the night of June 18, 2022, the night before Dana Torrance was last seen alive, his phone pinged near Bean Station Gap at 11:32 p.m. On the night of February 3, 2023, the night before Wyatt Grimes went for his last run, Neil's phone showed sustained activity along the Panther Creek access road between 9:14 p.m. and 11:58 p.m. On the night of October 9, 2023, 2 days before Shelby Mauro was reported missing, his phone pinged within 400 yards of the Watauga Ridge trailhead at 10:03 p.m. He was there before each victim vanished. He was there during each search, and during the searches, his phone data showed something else. In every assigned sector, Neil spent between 40 and 90 minutes longer than any other volunteer in comparable terrain. He was not searching, he was inspecting, moving debris, checking sight lines, ensuring that nothing he had left behind was visible from the grid path. He used the search itself as a return visit. He walked the ground with a legitimate reason to be there. He carried a flashlight and a radio and wore a vest that said volunteer, and no one questioned him, not once. What he built: A forensic search of Neil Buckner's property was executed on October 16, 2023 at 6 a.m. 12 officers from the Harden County Sheriff's Office and TBI entered the home and the detached workshop behind it. Inside the workshop, agents found a locked metal cabinet bolted to the wall. Inside the cabinet were 4 spiral notebooks. Each one was labeled with a month and year. Each one contained hand-drawn maps of specific trail sections in Harden County, with distances measured in paces, sight lines marked in red ink, and notes about foot traffic patterns by day of week. The notebooks went back 3 years. He had been studying the terrain, the traffic, the camera coverage, and the gaps long before the first disappearances. In the same cabinet were 4 gallon-sized zip bags. Each contained a single personal item: a watch, a hair tie, a shoelace, a keychain, one from each victim. Neil Buckner was arrested at his home at 6:23 a.m. on October 16, 2023. He did not resist. He was standing in his kitchen holding a cup of coffee. He put the cup down on the counter and extended his hands. He said nothing. He said nothing for 48 hours. Then, on October 18th at 2:15 p.m., he asked to speak with Detective Elledge. The conversation lasted 4 hours and 11 minutes. He described each killing in sequence. He described how he selected victims by watching trailhead parking lots for solo vehicles that sat overnight. He described how he returned to the bodies in the days after and adjusted their positions, covered them with brush, rerouted water flow near drainage sites. He described how he monitored the search parties from inside them. He said the searches gave him control. He said walking the grid next to deputies made him feel invisible. He said no one ever looked at the volunteer. When asked about the fabric that Tamara Boggs had found during the 3rd search, he paused for 19 seconds. Then he said he knew immediately what it was. He said his chest went cold. He said he told her it was trash because that was all he could think to say. He said that was the closest he ever came to being caught before Carmen Reyes and her maps. Justice and aftermath. Neil Buckner was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder on October 22, 2023. His trial began on March 4, 2024 in Hawkins County Circuit Court, venue changed due to pre-trial publicity. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Nadine Calloway, 44, presented the cell phone data, the notebooks, the personal items, and the volunteer logs. She played a recording of Buckner's confession. She showed the jury the sector maps with the overlay. In her closing statement, she said 7 words: "He searched for them so you would not." The defense argued diminished capacity, citing a childhood head injury and a history of isolation. The jury deliberated for 3 hours and 40 minutes. They returned guilty on all 4 counts. Neil Buckner was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. He is currently incarcerated at Riverbend Maximum Security Institution in Nashville, Tennessee. He has not spoken publicly since sentencing. He has written no letters. He has made no appeals. Lorraine Maurer moved to Knoxville in early 2024. She does not hike. She does not watch the news. She keeps Shelby's pharmacy badge in a drawer beside her bed and has not opened that drawer in 4 months. She told a reporter from the Knoxville News Sentinel that some mornings she wakes up and reaches for her phone to call Shelby before she remembers. She said the remembering is the worst part. She said it happens every single day. Tamara Boggs, the volunteer who found the torn fabric, gave a statement to the Harden County Review in November 2023. She said she thinks about that moment at the creek bed constantly. She said she handed the fabric to a man she trusted, and he told her it was nothing. She said she will never volunteer for a search again. Then she paused. Then she said she probably will, because someone has to. In February 2024, Tennessee State Representative Alicia Drummond introduced House Bill 1247, known as the Harden County Search Accountability Act. The bill requires that all volunteer participants in organized search operations be digitally logged with government-issued identification, that sector assignments be randomized and recorded, and that repeat volunteers across multiple cases be automatically flagged for investigative review. The bill passed unanimously on June 6, 2024. Deputy Sheriff Carmen Reyes was promoted to detective in January 2024. She keeps the original sector overlay map pinned above her desk. She has never taken it down. She told a colleague once that the map does not represent her best work. It represents 4 people who deserved someone to look sooner. Shelby Maurer's orange backpack was recovered from the Watauga Ridge Trail on October 17, 2023. Inside was a water bottle, a granola bar, a phone with a dead battery, and a handwritten checklist for a half marathon she had signed up for in November. She had written the word "ready" at the bottom and underlined it twice. That backpack is now in an evidence storage facility in Rogersville. No one has claimed it. Lorraine says she is not ready for that yet. She says maybe someday. She says Shelby would understand.